Okay. Welcome to King William County Town Hall meeting. This meeting is held to receive input from interested citizens on the budget process for fiscal year 2022. I would ask that you keep your questions and comments directed toward the development of the next year's county budget. With us tonight via Zoom is Natasha Journalan, Director of Financial Services, Steve Hudgens, Director of Operations, Sherry Graham, Director of Planning and Zoning, and Chief Reeves of the Fire and EMS Department. I will ask them to answer questions you may ask if it falls within their area of expertise. I will turn over the meeting to Travis Wolf, our IT support for tonight, to share with you how to ask questions using the Zoom platform.
Good evening, everyone. There are two ways that you can request to either speak or have your questions answered. In the chat feature at the bottom, there is a button that says raise hand. You're more than welcome to use that if you would like for us to acknowledge you and unmute your mic to speak, or you're also able to send the message through chat. Please send it directly to the King William County host user, and that way it will show up here in front of staff, Bobby or Olivia, to be able to answer your questions. Thanks.
We have two presentations tonight. The first will be presented by Olivia Lawrence on the budget survey. I would ask that you hold your questions to the end of her presentation. After Ms. Lawrence finishes, I will then present information I shared with the Board of Supervisors at last evening's meeting.
Good evening, everybody. Travis, will you put up my presentation? All right, so this year's FY 2022 budget survey was available via the following methods. We sent it via email to the Board of Supervisors, Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, the School Board for King William County Public Schools, the Historical Preservation Board, and the Economic Development Authority. We also sent it to our directors, managers, and constitutional officers. We let them know they were perfectly fine to send it to their constituents, neighbors, friends, anyone they'd like. We also posted it to our county's Facebook page on December 22nd, 4th, and 11th. It closed on the 11th because that is the day before today, so it gave us time to tabulate these results. And it was also posted to the King William County website on the 22nd. Our first slide here is for Fire and EMS. This represents our county fire and EMS staff and their funding for extra staff, training, vehicle, and equipment purchases. This year's is the larger graph here on the right. The previous year's survey is the smaller graph on the left. We had a little bit less of participation this year. There were 68 participants this year, so not quite what we wanted, but you can see it broken down at the bottom there with the exact numbers of what was taken. Here we have the Sheriff's Department. This represents deputies, sheriffs, funding for patrol, criminal investigation, equipment, upgrades, extra staffing, and training. Again, this year's graph is on the right, and the previous year's is on the bottom left. Here we have E911 dispatch. This represents the E911 dispatcher's office and their funding for extra staff, training, and technology upgrades. The animal control office, which falls under the Sheriff's Department, and their funding for training, extra staff, and equipment upgrades. The Public Utilities Department, the county putting forth funds to assist in projects relating to water and sewer. Our outside agency fundings. This is all of the agencies that fall within the group of, let's see, there's Bay Aging and Bay Transit, Arts Alive, Pamunkey Regional Library, Indian Rivers Humane Society, Rappahannock Community College, and the Upper King William Senior Center. Our King William County Public Schools. This represents the county's portion of funding for King William County Public Schools. Our funding assists with operations such as salaries, equipment, and supplies, as well as capital projects and group facility maintenance. Here we have our Parks and Recreation graphs. This represents our Parks and Recreation Department, who provides youth, adult, and senior programming throughout the county. Their funding goes towards extra staffing, increased programming, park upgrades, and upgraded technology and equipment. And still throughout this entirety, it's the left side is the last year's survey results versus the right side of which is this year's survey results. Here we have the administration, which is the county administration staff. This represents all training for the administrative portion of King William County, finance, building, planning, and administration, and their funding for staff, equipment, supplies, and training. The one thing that we changed from last year's survey, the one and only thing we changed, we split the administrative staff from the constitutional offices staff. So this is the graph that represents that. This represents their funding for staff, equipment, supplies, and training. And here we have the graphs that represent the participation versus this year and last year. On the left is last year's. We had 111 participants last year versus this year on the right, we only had 68. It seems about the same from each district, knowing big increases or decreases versus each district, but we advertised in all the same methods. So I'm not sure what we could do better or different next year. Any questions? Okay.
Travis, would you make sure that you minimize so that I can see my full screen? Well, once again, thank you for joining us tonight. This is the town hall meeting that is held annually as part of the budget process. The county strategy for fiscal integrity remains the same as pretty much for the last 2 to 3 years. We're making conservative estimates for growth, 1 to 2% annually. We look at our long-term debt. We decide to either refinance it when feasible or pay it off early. We've been able to do that to 3 long-term debts in the last 3 years. We continue to manage the unassigned general fund balance. This helps us reduce the reliance on long-term debt. We continue to support economic development. We do have a long way to go in that, but we are making some headway. We continue to support the King William County Public Schools, and we are also working with a company that is looking at a universal broadband initiative in the county. So we continue to support countywide reliable internet service. And the last is that we protect existing assets by investing in the county and the school's deferred maintenance program. This is investing in our buildings, in our fleet, and all kinds of things like that. once you spend, several $1 million on a building, you do want to make sure that it is maintained properly. The financial overview on the debt. In FY 2021, which is the current year that we're in, the annual debt for the county is 43.6% and the schools is 56.4%. Last year, we were down in the 30% range, but we added the radio upgrade, which is a public safety project for the Motorola's. So that increased our split to 43.6% for the county. Our benchmark for total debt, which is $33.3 million, and that includes interest and principal, is 3% of assessed values. The county is currently at 1.26%. This is a very favorable number per the Governmental Finance Officers Association benchmarks. The benchmark for debt compared to county school expenditure budgets should be less than 10%, and once again, we are in good standing. The county is at 6%. The County Master Utility Plan identified 4 projects addressing water flow and storage issues within the Central Garage in Fontainebleau Industrial Park. Utility and infrastructure projects such as these generally are constructed using bond funding and paid for from the fees collected within the Water and Sewer Fund. The Fire and Emergency Services Department has brought forward the need to replace the existing fire engine and backup ambulance. This would be accomplished through a lease purchase option and partially paid through the EMS billing revenue. Now, as for the assessment, the county assessment for 2021 has been completed and the land book signed and certified with the clerk of the court. The Board of Supervisors determined that they wanted to stay away from a 6-year assessment because of the disparity in market value over that time of period. So they have adopted a 2-year reassessment plan. So this reassessment is finalized as of 2021. The next one will be finalized as 2023. The Board of Supervisors at last night's meeting reaffirmed their commitment to reducing the real property tax rate during the annual budget process, and public input will be solicited and will be heard. It's not working. Travis, it's not working now. Okay, thank you. Per the Code of Virginia 58-1-3252, there is a requirement in the Virginia Constitution and in the Code of Virginia that all localities shall have a general reassessment of real estate at a minimum of 6 years, but generally 4 years. Also, per the Code of Virginia, Section 58-1-3321, I know that there has been a lot of concern with the reassessment and market value rates going up, that the current tax rate would create a financial burden on many of the property owners in the county. The Board of Supervisors has reiterated several times that because of the result in the increase of the reassessment and market value, that they are looking at a 1% increase over what was levied last year. So no more than 101% of the previous year's real property tax levies will be allowed by the Board of Supervisors. Now, this is going to be multiple conversations through the budget process. The tax rate will go down. We will need to make sure, though, that we can still cover all of the expenditures that are needed to run the county. But I do want to reassure the community that the Board of Supervisors takes this very seriously, and we will be working towards reducing the tax rate. As far as the King William County Public Schools operational and debt service, the county operates under a split levy taxing system due to the dual school systems, the one in the town of West Point and the one in the county. The county contributed to the schools in FY21, including operational support and debt service, a little over $11 million, or 42.3% of the school's overall operational budget. In addition, in fiscal year 20 and 21, the county provided a little over $1 million in CARES relief funds to the schools, and that does exclude the direct CARES funding that was received by the schools as well. The graph in front of you is the FY21 projected revenues. Our FY21 current year budget is $25.6 million. As you will note that the general property taxes makes up the largest portion of the projected revenue to earn, which is $19.2 million. So as you can see, we rely heavily on real property taxes, mines and minerals, Public Service Corporation, and all of those items that fall within that $19.2 million. This is the FY21 appropriated expenditures. And as you will note, payroll for the entire county is roughly $5 million. Benefits is right around $1.7 million. County operations, which is everything from gasoline for the fleet cars, to training for staff, to office supplies, to phone, all kinds of things like that, is $1.7 million. The operational support alone for the schools this fiscal year is $9.5 million. And their debt service is then included with the county in the debt service amount of $2.7 million. Voluntary contributions to agencies is about $83,000. And then the relationship that we have with local, state, and regional agreements is the third largest category. So talking about those local, state, and regional agreements, what it is that their annual fixed expenditures were in regional agreements, which allow us to leverage our dollars. We do usually have escalations each year, but they're minimal compared to what we would be having to fund if we had these directly managed by the county. And we're talking about the Adult Regional Security Center, the Juvenile Detention Center, some of the court services, the regional airport, our transfer and convenience center sites, the animal shelter, the regional library, the health department, the Community Service Board, Rappahannock Community College, Three Rivers Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Cooperative Extension Program. And that's just to name a few. So the county is in partnership with many other localities and leveraging our dollars the best way that we can. So some of the capital funding accomplishments that we have taken care of so far this year has been at the County Rec Park. The basketball courts were completely redone. The dog park was installed thanks to Nestle Purina providing a financial donation in support for the project. We acquired the 360 complex building in front of Station 1 and have completed the renovations of the interior. Where the old pharmacy was is now a community center, and where the dentist office was is now a satellite sheriff's office. At the same time this year, we are implementing Edmunds financial software for both the county and the schools. This was critical. We have been on a very old system for many, many years. It had many limitations and did not provide a great deal of transparency. And that is one of the things that our finance department is pushing, is transparency for the citizens, to be able to see reports that have meaning instead of just DOS matrix type things. We also are implementing a new assessment package in GIS software called Vision. We implemented a new county website, and we have implemented Civic Clerk, which is an e-board software to allow our board members to utilize tablets and to continue to receive information at lifetime. So some of the capital needs identified for fiscal year 2021 through 2025 include renovation and construction. The courthouse has an unfinished wing. This is the new courthouse. And in deciding what should be put in there, of course, we spoke with Judge Bondurant, gave him some options. But due to the situation that we're currently in, he has requested that that wing be built out for another courtroom. We also are going to need to be doing some paving at the 360 complex. The Upper Mattaponi tribe was very gracious and went ahead and paved our side of the parking lot next to their medical clinic, but we still need to do some paving in the back for overflow parking. We also need to pave the front and back area around Station 1. That gravel takes a heavy toll on our equipment, and considering how much our fire and EMS equipment cost, I think paving it would probably do much better for us. The rec center, that is at the park. That is an old building. It's still in good shape, but it definitely could use renovation. And the old health building, which is the location of BJCCCA and the court service unit, is also in okay shape, but it definitely needs renovation. The county facilities maintenance program, that includes HVAC replacement, re-roofing, and general replacement. We have projects pending in the next 5 to 6 years of re-roofing the new courthouse and the animal shelter. We have had an ongoing HVAC replacement schedule, but at the same time, we have a cooling tower that we're going to have to do a lot of upgrades to over at the new courthouse. For the fleet scheduled replacement, generally we replace 2 to 3 patrol vehicles each year. We are looking at needing to replace the fire engine and adding another third ambulance to the fleet. That will probably occur in the next year to 2 years. The brush truck, we are currently seeking a grant for that and hope to hear something this month. And under fire and EMS equipment needs, there is a need for an emergency signal out in front of Station 1 in the 360 complex to protect the citizens on 360, but also to protect our fire medics as they are leaving the station. We also need to replace the SCBA equipment, and routinely, though not this year, we give $30,000 to Mangahick, West Point, and to the King William Station to be used as capital items as they see fit. And the last is the infrastructure build out. This is all water related. The master utility plan that I spoke about earlier identified 4 projects by 2025. One of them is installing a 600-gallon water tower over close to where the existing one is, doing a loop extension on the water lines, addressing some fire flow issues, and then also looking at either drilling a new well and storage system at Nestle Purina at Fontainebleau Industrial Park, or looping that in. That's a large project, multiple projects in fact, and if you'll look at the bottom of the slide, red refers to proffer and reserves, which is what we would be looking at for renovating the rec center. Green would be grants, which that's brush truck and the SCBA equipment. Blue is lease purchase, which of course would be the fire engine and the ambulance. And then purple would be bond funds. And last night I brought up the topic of bond funds for some infrastructure build out. And generally these type of bonds are paid for out of sewer and water fees. They do not come out of the general fund. Therefore, you don't need to be concerned that your tax dollars will be addressing this, but this is something that we are seriously considering. Maybe not all of the projects, but at least trying to start on something. So the county budget process is as follows. The first 3 bullets have occurred or are occurring as I speak. The following ones, though, are for your information so that you can stay involved. February 8th will be further budget discussions with the Board of Supervisors. March 9th will be the joint meeting with the King William County Public School Board and the King William County Board of Supervisors to hear the school's budget request for fiscal year 2022. March 22nd will be further budget discussions with the Board of Supervisors. April 5th is going to be the public hearing for the proposed budget and the tax levies. So that is where you're going to definitely want to participate. All of this will be published in the newspapers at least 2 to 3 weeks prior so that you'll have time to review it, discuss it, speak to your Board of Supervisors about it, and then hopefully you will attend either in person or via Zoom on April 5th and voice your comments to the Board of Supervisors about the tax rate and the budget that's being proposed. April 12th was going to be further budget discussions with the Board of Supervisors. The 16th is our final budget work session with the board. It's usually a day-long budget session. And then April 26th is when the Board of Supervisors adopts the fiscal year 2022 budget and the tax levies to take effect July 1st. So that wraps up my presentation. Are there any questions? Mr. Schumacher has asked when the question concerning the additional courtroom. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Tessenary. Yeah, I just got a general question. What is did the judge go into the details about what the need was for the additional courtroom? Because it's my understanding, like, there's 5 days out of the week and they don't have court cases every day. So I was just curious.
Well, in reality, the court cases are increasing. Um, in fact, they have had to, from what I understand from talking to Sheriff Walton, they have had to add some of the security to be there. So they are ramping up. I know that COVID has really made things much more difficult, but that's also creating a backlog. So when I talked to Judge Bondurant, or I sent him a letter, I didn't speak to him personally. I presented about 2 to 3 different options, but also our Commonwealth's attorney had made the Director of Finance and I aware about 3 or 4 months prior to that there was probably going to be a need for an additional courtroom as well. So the judge just affirmed that, and it will probably be a little bit easier and a little bit less expensive to build a courtroom than it would be for offices or some other use of that space. Okay, any other questions? Well, I do hope that you will participate in the budget process. It is critical that we know what the citizens want to see funded. We do have, very specific fixed expenditures that we have to address, but I would say that I do believe that the county staff do their very best to be as conservative as possible. We are still building back after many years of reductions. The workload doesn't diminish, it just increases, but we're trying to be smart about how we handle that, how we add staffing and delegate the resources that we have. But if no one else has any questions, both the budget survey and this presentation will be posted on the website tomorrow morning so that you can review them. If you do have questions following after looking it over, please reach out to me, to Olivia, or reach out to Natasha Journalin, Steve Hudgens, Chief Reeves, or Sherry Graham to see what we can do for you, okay? So thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later.